is trying to tell us that our choices don't matter, that I can make up for myself what's right and wrong. I can decide for myself what's good and evil. This is the idea of moral relativism. We have to see that moral relativism really is focused on self. In relativism, I make myself the author of my own morality. And when I do that, I can pursue and justify whatever I want. There's no higher standard outside myself challenging me and calling me on to greatness. But we're going to see that God has a plan for our lives. And His plan leads us to that heroic life. After all, God made us. He knows how we work and He knows what's best for us. So we all in the end have to make a fundamental decision. Which plan for our lives will we follow? God's plan or our own? Chris, many people today, when they hear the word morality, they think of something negative. They view morality as something restrictive, a bunch of rules, a bunch of thou shalt nots. What's the Catholic understanding of morality?
Catholic understanding of morality is that we follow the God who made us so we can be set free, so we can be fully alive, fully who we are. You know, in order for anything to function like it's supposed to, it's got to be used according to its design. You know, when my kids use the microwave as a fork warmer, that doesn't work well. That's not what it's for. When they use the DVD player to make toast, that's not what that's for, right? God is the maker of us. He made us. He knows how we work. And Catholic morality is following the Maker's plan with our own lives so that we don't end up broken.
So Catholic morality is about a quest for happiness and finding fulfillment in life. How do we become a slave if we don't have a moral pathway for our lives?
Sin doesn't play nice with us. It tends to make us slaves. Vice is a habit toward doing something bad. You know, you're not free to have a vice. So you have this habit, whether it's with lust, with pride, with greed. You know, it becomes a habitual behavior. So even if you want to do what's right, if you want to do what's good, that vice is pulling you back down to the ground. Virtue, Catholic ethics, is what sets you free to do what's right, to do what's good. You know, life to the full is what Jesus invites us to. He didn't say, I came to make them slaves, I came to make them boring, I came to make them someone they're not.
Yeah, I think that's something we can all relate to, that we all have areas of our lives where we have certain weaknesses, certain bad habits, and we may know, I should do this. We may say, all right, I need to get this project done, but we procrastinate, or I need to get up at this time and we hit the snooze button, or I'm struggling with losing my temper, you know, with my family or with my kids, and I know I shouldn't, but I fall into that trap. Or we all have these vices, but we want to be free from that.
That's right.
And we need virtue. We need the good habits that to work on to help us to grow in that. Now, let me go back to the question of morality, though, because again, today, oftentimes people have this negative view of morality, and some people may view morality as something that we shouldn't really talk about. You know, that maybe I should just be free. We should let people be free to do whatever they want with their lives. We shouldn't tell them what to do. We shouldn't impose our views on them.
That's it.
What would you say about that?
Well, you're bumping up against the big barrier to people having a right perception of morality today, which is relativism, which is the philosophy that a lot of people haven't even heard of what relativism is, but most people, I think, are relativists regardless. It's the philosophy that you can make up your own morality, your own ethics, that there's no objective truth when it comes to ethics or how we're supposed to live and how we're supposed to act. But everyone's got their own truth, that this is true for me, and you have something that's true for you. You know, it becomes a big problem today if you dare to step out of that box and say, no, there's an objective truth when it comes to ethics and how you're supposed to live. If you disagree with X, Y, and Z, you're wrong.
And when you say objective truth, you mean a standard, a moral standard that we're all accountable to.
That's it.
Relativism is the idea, you have your truth, I have my truth, but there's no the truth to which we're all accountable.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the common worldview of that people hold today, and the common assumption. What would you say is a problem with relativism?
You can see how it could ruin people's lives. I mean, I work with teens. I've been in youth ministry 15 years. I give a lot of chastity talks. I'll tell you, when teens are about to do something like premarital sex, relativism, it's all over that. Okay, they're not asking, is this right or wrong? You know, is this what God wants? Is this good for this other person or bad for this other person? They're usually asking, do I feel ready? Okay, if you pass puberty, yes, you feel ready. So what? You know, we see people ruining their reputation. doubling their chance of a divorce someday, getting sexually transmitted diseases. The list goes on and on and on because they felt ready, because they weren't even trained how to think about right or wrong when it comes to supremely important things like sexual ethics, drug use. I mean, how many, go to any jail, ask people, are you here for something that you felt like doing, that felt right to you? Almost all of them are going to say, yeah, it felt great. So what? They did something objectively wrong. So we don't have to look far to see how relativism can destroy people's lives.
Yeah, because if we can just say, there is no truth and I can just do whatever I want, we're going to tend to do the things that are more selfish, or things that are not necessarily for our good or the good of other people, but may give us a momentary experience of pleasure or excitement or comfort, but in the end really harms us.
Yeah, and it might feel like freedom at the moment. But I just look back at my own experience in life. You look back at yours, just remember any time that you're stuck in sin, and you see, wow, I was a slave. I thought I was becoming me. I was becoming somebody else.
Now, some people might say that morality is just dependent on what kind of upbringing you had, maybe your family life, or what church you went to, or what culture you grew up in, what country, and that morality is really just based on the upbringing that you had, the experiences you had or didn't have. What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's cultural relativism, you call that, right? And all you have to do is look at real experiences in life to see that doesn't work, it doesn't hold water. You can have an entire culture think slavery is okay. You can have a whole culture be anti-Semitic. It doesn't make a difference. It's still objectively wrong. I mean, I can't judge them, that's above my pay grade. But I can judge an action. When I see an immoral action, not only can I judge it, I must judge it, so that I know how to act myself.
Now, what about the idea that many people may have is that they sense that something's wrong. Mm-hmm. They know that I think this is morally wrong, but they're hesitant to want to talk about it. Yeah. They don't want to say this is right or this is wrong in public because they don't want to appear as a bigot. They don't want to appear judgmental. They want to just be more loving and accepting of others. What would you say to encourage them to hold on to their moral convictions?
Yeah, they want to appear tolerant, right? And we've flipped around the proper understanding of tolerance. The relativist understanding of tolerance is that to be tolerant is to never disagree, right? The true definition of tolerance requires that you first disagree in order to begin being able to tolerate somebody. You don't tolerate a beautiful sunny day. You tolerate the rain, right? So tolerance is disagreeing and then putting up with and then loving. You can be very firm on objective truth and be tolerant. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, she was convinced of the divinity of Jesus Christ, convinced that Hindus were wrong when it came to who Jesus is. You're never going to see a YouTube video come out of her kneeing a Hindu in the face in the slums of Calcutta, accept Jesus into your life. No, she gave her life serving and loving those people. She would disagree with the gay rights movement about the definition of marriage, right? She also started the first AIDS hospice in New York City. Our mandate from Jesus is to love and serve everyone, even if we disagree with them. But disagreeing doesn't mean you're hating.
And if we really love them, we want to share the truth about life and about morality so that they can be happy.
Yeah, that's right. And a great irony of our day, we think that relativism is loving. Just accepting everything, every activity from everyone, regardless of anything, that's just accepting them as they are, right? Apply that thinking to driver's ed. What if we said, hey, kids, don't pay attention to those silly yellow lines that held your forefathers in place for so many generations. Drive as you will. Discover yourselves. That will lead into ruin. No, we point out the lines, we point out the rules of driving, because that's what leads us to life. That's what keeps us from destruction.
And when we follow God's plan, we follow the pathway to happiness. But if we go against it, we're going to end up hurting ourselves and hurting other people in the process.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think this also relates to family life, doesn't it? You and I are fathers, and we have to raise kids in the home, and we have to give them laws because we love them, right?
That's right.
Share an example from your own family life about how morality would fit in.
Yeah. Every day, right? And tolerance fits in every day too. That's okay. But I have some of my kids who 3 times a day would like to eat marshmallows and Snickers, right? 3 times, like, just give me more candy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Is it unloving of me when I say, no, you have to eat greens? No, you see, I give them rules because I know what's good for them. I give them rules because I love them. I give them rules because I want them to be healthy and strong and good people. And that's the same reason going back to our first point, why God gave us rules. Not to limit us, not to take away our fun, our happiness, our freedom. He gives us rules to follow to set us free, so that we can live the life that He made us for.
Let there be light. Oh, there you go. It's like Easter all over. Yeah, one of this week was, I guess, yesterday, was the 82nd anniversary of Crystal Night. You know what that Crystal Night? Okay, it's the night that basically in Germany that the Nazis turned their troops loose to corral the Jews. And so there was so many broken windows and stuff that people referred to it as the Crystal Night because they could hear glass breaking all night. A lot of Jews were killed. Many Jews were rounded up and shipped off to concentration camps that night. And people stood in the street and cheered. Do you know what the religious makeup was of Germany at the time? 97% Christian. So it's like 50-something% Protestant and 40% Catholic. And nobody stood up and said, this is not right. And so that's how those things happened. Was it immoral? Absolutely. But look how long the war went on. Look how many millions of people, my wife's family was Jewish. And her dad came from Russia, and he ended up fighting, came and joined the army in the U.S. and was wounded and died when Sarah was real young. And people said to him, yeah, I bet you're sorry you came to the U.S. and this is what happens to you. You're wounded, you get a disease because tuberculosis of the bones, what they called it at the time, and you died. And he said, you know what happened to all the Jews in my village who didn't come to the U.S.? There are none of them left, not one. They don't know where any, they just disappeared. And so, the point that they were, it's, I was going to look it up and see, some of y'all may know who that quote's from, but, the quote that goes, the worst thing that can happen is for good people to do nothing, and I'm continually amazed at the things that we do and where I expect people to be up in arms. And, I don't want to get into a lot of politics, but, the children at the border that, we still don't know where their parents are. The intention of that was probably, the idea was we need to discourage these people from coming. And so that was the supposed end goal. But what we did to make that happen was totally immoral. And so that's the kind of stuff that, it's easy up to a point. I mean, some things are clearly good and some things are clearly bad, but you get into stuff like, okay, and then what's our role as Christians, especially Catholic Christians? So, Jesus said, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. And one of the points the guys made in the video was, it's our job to love everybody. I mean, everybody is a creation of God. We may not like what they do, and there are certainly plenty of those people. I remember I was talking to one of the kids I worked with one time who had been pretty badly abused. And so anyway, one of the things that happened pretty often, the kids would say, you know, Mr. Mike, that bothers you a whole lot more than it does me, because that's what I lived with. But I remember one of the kids, we were talking to him, and it was like we were trying to get him to open up with his therapist about stuff he'd gone on with. He said, yeah, I've thought about my dad a lot. You know, he's a jerk. And so, I mean, it wasn't like he didn't understand what happened. He understood what was happening, he didn't have any control over it. I worked with a kid one time, how the dad disciplined the kids. He came in one night, grabbed their dog and snapped its neck. And he said, you cross me, you're next. And the kid said, he only had to do that once. So, and these guys talk about the kind of people, so when they talk about relativism, it doesn't matter, yes, it is determined sometimes by the environment you grew up in, or your circumstances, or whatever, so it's a constant weighing process. So, anything else I can bring up that's depressing, but anyway. So, and even when it comes to sinfulness, okay, so is smoking a sin? Well, for a lot of people, smoking's a habit. Okay, it depends on how it started. I mean, okay, if I said, because, many, many years ago I smoked, when everybody smoked, but if I went out today and said, I want God to know how little respect I have for this body, and starting today, I'm going to smoke. Okay, well then, for me, that action would be a sin, clearly. Okay, but for somebody who starts smoking now, smoking's a habit for them, well, it could still be sinful because you're harming yourself, but it's not the same. I mean, once it's a habit, it's a different kind of process. Does that make sense? Y'all still with me?
Can I interrupt you? Do you
Sure.
know where the Knights are meeting tonight?
Do what?
You know where the Knights of Columbus are meeting?
I have no idea.
I'm going to text Father because he was going to me.
Sorry, Mike.
It's okay.
I tell you what.
They're meeting at the hall.
Where did you just
Where
drive?
are they meeting, Travis?
At the hall, at the Knights Hall.
I was on the spring.
Does he need the address?
I tell you what. Did they give you
Yeah,
directions?
Could you help them?
Y'all know Father Patrick.
No.
He's a Benedictine.
I tried to get him to come in and join us.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, okay. So, so when they talked about virtue, and I can't remember in this one, did they explain? So virtue is the habitual disposition to do good. So if we are always working on it, and the thing is, Jesus came to give us life, and we are fallen people. Okay, so we're always messing up. And the great thing is that we have, one of the great gifts of the Catholic Church, we have reconciliation, and we have great respect for and need of grace. So, Jesus is, prepared us for, and your sins shall be wiped away. I was trying to think whether this is in the... So, one of the things that we seek is to make the world, we want the world to change and to be a better place. And that starts with us being the change we want to see. Y'all have any questions about the first part of the video? It says, group discussion.
Ryan can restart it for you. Are you ready to restart the video?
I'm ready.
All right.
Unless y'all have questions. Because it says, pause for group discussion. Okay.
You don't have to do everything it says.
I know, but I mean, I don't want them to feel like they're being left out. Okay. Onward and upward. So,
I think they won't want to stay to midnight. I'm thinking 7:30 is good enough.
well, I have a third